The text came at midnight. It's Mason. I know it's been 12 years. I need to talk about Fallujah, about that rooftop, about why I disappeared. Can you meet me at the range tomorrow night, after closing? Please. There's Or 4. Night Jake Mason, the best sniper I'd ever worked with, the man who'd saved my entire squad during the Second Battle of Fallujah, the friend who'd vanished 3 weeks after we came home, leaving no trace, no explanation, no goodbye. 12 years of wondering what happened to him. 12 years of questions. And now, out of nowhere, a text asking to meet. I responded immediately, I'll be there. 9 p.m., make it 11. After the range closes. What I need to say can't have an audience. The shooting range he'd named was in the warehouse district, the kind of place serious shooters went for long-distance practice. I arrived at 11 to find the main lights off, but Mason waiting in the back range, sitting on a bench in the shadows. He looked terrible. Thinner than I remembered, with the kind of weariness that comes from years of not sleeping well. But his eyes, those same sharp eyes that had made him deadly through a scope, still held that intensity. "Carter," he said, standing to grip my hand, "thanks for coming. Wasn't sure you would after 12 years of silence. Where the hell have you been, Mason? You disappeared. No calls, no emails, no forwarding address. I tried to find you for months. I know, I'm sorry, but I needed to disappear. After what happened, after what I did, what you did. You saved our lives in Fallujah. You're a hero, man. Why would you need to disappear because of that?" Mason gestured for me to sit on the bench. He paced in front of me, unable to stay still, energy radiating off him like electricity. "That's what I need to talk to you about Fallujah, about that day on the rooftop, about what actually happened, and why the story you've been telling yourself for 12 years isn't the truth." My chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" He pulled out a worn notebook, the kind snipers kept to log their shots. "November 10th, 2004, Second Battle of Fallujah. Your squad was clearing buildings in the industrial district. I was providing overwatch from a rooftop 300 meters away. You remember? I did. It was burned into my memory. One of the worst days of the deployment. Our squad had walked into a complex ambush, insurgents in multiple positions, coordinated fire, nowhere to retreat. We'd been pinned down, taking casualties, when Mason had started picking off the enemy positions one by one. You saved us. Took out 6 insurgents in maybe 3 minutes, gave us the break we needed to extract our wounded and pull back. I recommended you for a Silver Star. That's the story the after-action report tells," Mason said quietly. 6 enemy combatants eliminated, squad saved, clean shots, textbook sniper work. But it's not complete. There's something the report doesn't say, something I never told anyone, something that's been destroying me for 12 years. He opened the notebook to a page marked with a faded ribbon. "This is my log from that day. Every shot I took, the targets, the ranges, the conditions, everything." I looked at the page. It showed exactly what I remembered. 6 shots, 6 confirmed kills, all within a 3-minute window. "I don't understand. What am I missing?" Mason's hand was shaking as he pointed to an entry at the bottom of the page. "There's a 7th shot, one I took but never reported, one that's not in the official record. Why wouldn't you report a confirmed kill?" "Because it wasn't an enemy combatant." His voice cracked. "It was a child, a 12-year-old boy. And I killed him." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" Mason sat down heavily beside me, his face in his hands. "During the firefight while I was engaging the insurgent positions, I saw movement in a window. Different building, different angle from where the insurgents were shooting. Through my scope I saw someone raising what looked like a rifle, aiming toward your position. Split-second decision. I took the shot. After I fired, after the target dropped, I kept watching through my scope. Needed to confirm the kill. That's when I saw clearly what I'd shot. Not an adult fighter. A kid. Maybe 12 years old. And what I'd thought was a rifle. It was a piece of wood. A makeshift toy or tool. Not a weapon. I felt sick. Mason, in combat, with your squad pinned down, if you saw what looked like a weapon, it wasn't a weapon." His voice rose. "I know what weapons look like. I've been a sniper for 8 years, but in that moment, with the stress and the chaos and the pressure to keep you guys alive, I saw what I expected to see instead of what was actually there. And I killed a child because of it. Did anyone else see this? Your spotter?" My spotter was tracking different targets. Never saw the 7th shot. By the time anyone could have verified, the firefight was over and we were extracting. The building where I'd shot the kid was in a sector our unit didn't clear that day. So nobody found the body. Nobody reported a civilian casualty. It was like it never happened. Except it did happen. I killed a 12-year-old Iraqi kid who was probably just looking out a window during a battle. And I never told anyone." Mason pulled out a photograph, grainy, taken through a telephoto lens. It showed a body in a window, small, clearly a child. "I went back," he said quietly. 2 days later, went to that building, found the body still there. Took this photo because I needed proof. needed evidence of what I'd done. Then I reported it anonymously as a civilian casualty discovered during post-battle sweep. Why didn't you come forward? Tell command what happened? Because I was a coward. Because I was terrified of what would happen if I admitted I'd shot a child. Court-martial. Prison. Dishonorable discharge. My entire life destroyed. So I took the coward's way out. I hid it, pretended it never happened. Let everyone believe I'd only taken the 6 shots in the official log. He was crying now, tears streaming down his face, and then it got worse. Because you guys nominated me for a Silver Star, for heroism in saving the squad. And I had to stand there and accept the nomination, accept the praise, accept people calling me a hero, all while knowing I'd killed a kid and covered it up. The award ceremony was 3 weeks after we got home. I couldn't do it. Couldn't stand on that stage and receive an award for the same day I'd committed what was essentially murder. So I disappeared, changed my name, moved across the country, cut off all contact with anyone from my unit. You changed your name. Jake Mason doesn't exist anymore. Legally changed it 8 years ago. The person writing this log, the person who killed that child, I tried to erase him, tried to become someone else who didn't have to carry that guilt, but it didn't work. Because you can't erase memory. Can't change what you did by changing what you're called. So for 12 years I've been this ghost, this fake person built on top of a killer who never faced consequences. I sat there trying to process this. Mason, my friend, the man who'd saved my life, was confessing to killing a child and covering it up. Why are you telling me now, after 12 years? He pulled out a letter. Official VA letterhead. I've been diagnosed with PTSD, severe chronic treatment resistant. My therapist says I'll never get better until I face what I did, until I stop running from it. And she's right. 12 years of running hasn't made it better. It's made it worse. So I'm here to confess, to tell you what really happened that day, to finally acknowledge that the Silver Star I was nominated for was based on an incomplete picture that left out the worst thing I did. What do you want from me? Forgiveness? No, I don't deserve forgiveness. I want you to know the truth, and I want you to help me decide what to do about it. What do you mean? Mason pulled out more papers from his bag. These are drafted statements, formal confessions to military authorities, acknowledgement of the killing, request for investigation. 3 different versions, one that admits everything, one that provides context about combat stress, one that focuses on my failure to report. I've been carrying these for months. Can't decide which to send. Can't decide if sending any of them accomplishes anything except destroying what's left of my life. So I'm asking you, someone who was there, someone who knows what combat is like, what should I do? I looked at the statements, at the photo of the dead child, at Mason's face twisted with 12 years of guilt. Walk me through exactly what happened. Every detail. So he did. For the next hours, Mason reconstructed that day in Fallujah minute by minute. The initial contact, the insurgent positions he'd engaged, the moment he'd seen the 7th target. I had maybe 2 seconds to make the decision, he explained. Through the scope, I saw a figure in a window approximately 400 meters away. The figure was holding what appeared to be a long object pointed toward your position. Based on the angle, the position, and the context of active combat, I assessed it as a hostile threat. Standard engagement protocol is to eliminate threats to friendly forces. So I took the shot. Center mass. Immediate drop. Textbook execution. Except the threat assessment was wrong. I'd killed a child holding a piece of wood. In those 2 seconds, could you have identified that it was a child? That the object wasn't a weapon? Maybe. If I'd taken more time, if I'd been less focused on protecting you guys, if I'd second-guessed my initial assessment. But in combat, hesitation kills. You've been taught that. You act on the information available in the moment, and you live with the consequences. So you made a split-second decision under combat stress based on limited information. That's not murder. That's a tragic mistake in a combat situation. Is there a difference? The kid is still dead. I still killed him. The fact that I didn't mean to doesn't change that I did. I thought about that. About the difference between criminal culpability and moral responsibility. About how combat creates situations where good people make terrible mistakes with permanent consequences. If you report this now, what happens? Best case? Investigation determines it was an understandable mistake in combat conditions. Worst case, prosecution for failure to report civilian casualty, possible charges related to the killing itself, definitely loss of any honors or commendations from that deployment, public exposure as someone who killed a child and covered it up, and your current life, destroyed. I'm married now, have a daughter, she's 9 years old. My wife knows I served but doesn't know about this. This would devastate them, ruin everything I've built since I disappeared. So you're asking me whether you should destroy your current life to face consequences for something that happened 12 years ago in a combat situation. I'm asking whether I deserve to keep living a lie. Whether that kid's life matters enough that I should face accountability even if it costs me everything. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of the question hanging between us. Let me ask you something, I finally said. If you could go back to that moment, knowing what you know now, would you still take the shot? Mason thought carefully. If I knew it was a child with a toy? No, absolutely not. But if I had the same information I had in that moment, an unidentified figure appearing to aim a weapon at my squad, I think I would. Because the alternative was risking your lives on the possibility that the threat wasn't real. So the decision you made was reasonable given the information available. The fact that the threat turned out to be a child doesn't retroactively make the decision wrong. But I covered it up afterward. That's the real crime. Not the split-second decision in combat, but the 12 years of hiding from what I did. Why did you hide it? Because I was afraid. Afraid of consequences, afraid of judgment, afraid of losing everything. And because living with the guilt seemed easier than facing the scrutiny of an investigation. Was it? Was living with the guilt easier? Mason laughed bitterly. No, it's been hell. 12 years of nightmares, 12 years of seeing that kid's face, 12 years of building a life on top of a lie. It hasn't been easier. It's been slowly destroying me. I looked at the confession statements he'd prepared. Each one would trigger an investigation, potential prosecution, certain exposure. His marriage would likely end. His daughter would learn her father had killed a child. Everything he'd built in 12 years would collapse. What does your therapist say? She says I need to face it. That confession is necessary for healing. But she also says confession can be private, that I don't necessarily need to report to authorities, that acknowledging the truth to myself and to people I trust might be enough for therapeutic purposes. Do you believe that? I don't know. Part of me thinks I owe it to that kid to face official accountability, to make sure his death is properly recorded, to accept whatever punishment I deserve. But part of me thinks destroying my current family to atone for killing a different family's child doesn't actually help anyone. Over the next hours, we debated the options. The arguments for confessing, accountability, honesty, proper documentation of what happened. The arguments for staying silent, mercy for his current family, recognition that combat mistakes are different from crimes, acknowledgement that punishment wouldn't bring the child back. Let me tell you something, I said eventually. That day in Fallujah, you saved 6 Marines, including me. We wouldn't have made it out without your cover fire. So yes, you also killed a child in a tragic mistake, but you also saved 6 lives. Do those 6 lives count for nothing in the moral calculus? They don't cancel out. Saving 6 people doesn't give you a free pass to kill 1 innocent person. No, but context matters. You weren't a murderer who happened to also do something good. You were a soldier doing your job, making split-second decisions to protect your brothers, and you made one terrible mistake in the process. A mistake that cost a child his life. Yes. And you've been punishing yourself for it for 12 years. At what point does the punishment become sufficient? Mason looked at me with hollow eyes. I don't think there is sufficient punishment for killing a child. I think I'm supposed to carry this forever. Even if carrying it forever destroys you and your family, maybe that's the price I'm supposed to pay. I thought about the moral equations of war, about the impossible decisions people face, about whether redemption is possible for tragic mistakes. Let me propose something, I said. Don't send those official confessions yet. Instead, document what happened for the record. Write it down completely, accurately. Include the photo in your notes. Seal it with instructions that it be opened after your death. That way the truth exists, preserved, but it doesn't destroy your current family. That's still hiding from it. No, it's acknowledging it while showing mercy to the people who didn't cause the tragedy but would suffer from its exposure. Your wife didn't kill that child. Your daughter didn't kill that child. Why should they pay the price for your mistake? And in the meantime, you live with it. You carry the guilt. You use your remaining years to do good that honors the memory of the child you killed. You don't get to forget or be forgiven, but you also don't have to destroy innocent people in your quest for punishment. Mason was quiet for a long time. There's something else, he finally said. Something I haven't told you yet. What? I've been trying to find the kid's family. Spent years researching, trying to identify who he was. I think I found them. A family that lost a son in November 2004. The timing and location match. His name was probably Ahmad. He was 12 years old. What are you planning to do with that information? I don't know. Part of me wants to contact them, tell them what happened, apologize. But what would that accomplish? It would just reopen their grief for no reason except to ease my conscience. You're right, contacting them would be selfish. It would force them to relive their son's death so you could feel like you'd confessed. So what do? Just carry this forever? Never acknowledge it to the people most affected? You acknowledge it to yourself. You honor Ahmad's memory privately. You make your remaining life count for something. But you don't inflict your guilt on his family or your family. You carry it yourself. Mason looked at the confession statements spread on the table. So I'm choosing cowardice again. Choosing to hide rather than face consequences. No, you're choosing to carry the burden without spreading it to people who don't deserve it. That's not cowardice. That's a different kind of courage. We sat for a while longer. 2 men wrestling with impossible questions in an empty shooting range at midnight. I'm sorry I disappeared. Mason finally said. Sorry I left you wondering. Sorry I cut off our friendship because I couldn't face you knowing what I'd done. I understand why you did, but Mason, or whatever name you're using now, you're still my brother. What happened in Fallujah doesn't change that. You saved my life. The fact that you also made a terrible mistake doesn't erase the good you did. How do you live with that? With the contradiction? With being both the person who saved lives and the person who took an innocent life? I don't know, but I think you have to accept that both things are true, that you can be a hero and make a tragic mistake, that you can deserve honor for what you did right while still carrying guilt for what you did wrong. Mason packed up his notebook and the photo and the confession statements. Thank you for listening, for not judging, for helping me think through this. What are you going to do? I'm going to do what you suggested. Document it fully, seal it for after my death, and I'm going to try to live a life that honors Ahmad's memory. I can't bring him back, can't undo what I did, but I can make my remaining years count for something. And the Silver Star nomination? What about that? I never accepted it, never attended the ceremony. That's part of why I disappeared. But you're right that the nomination was for the real saves, for the 6 shots that mattered. Maybe I can accept that those were heroic even if the 7th shot was tragic. We left the range together. Before we parted in the parking lot, Mason gave me a copy of his documentation. If something happens to me before I can properly seal this, make sure it gets preserved somewhere. Make sure Ahmad isn't completely forgotten, but also make sure it doesn't destroy my family. I will. And Mason, stay in touch this time. Don't disappear again. You don't have to carry this alone. He nodded, and for the first time in our conversation, I saw something like peace on his face. Not forgiveness, not redemption, but acceptance that he'd finally told the truth to someone who'd been there. I went home and told my wife about the conversation, about Ahmad, about Mason's 12 years of guilt, about the impossible choice between accountability and mercy. What do you think he should do? She asked. I think he's doing it, acknowledging the truth, carrying the guilt, living with the contradiction. It's not perfect. It's not justice, but maybe it's the best we can offer in an impossible situation. Mason and I stay in touch now, meet occasionally. Don't talk much about Fallujah or Ahmad or that day on the rooftop, but the knowledge sits between us, acknowledged, no longer a secret, but not exactly public either. He's still struggling, still carrying guilt, still seeing Ahmad's face in nightmares. But he's also being a good father to his daughter, a good husband, a good person building something meaningful with the life Ahmad lost. Is it enough? I don't know. Can you ever make up for killing a child, even accidentally in combat? Probably not, but Mason's trying, carrying the weight, living with the contradiction of being both a hero and someone who made a tragic mistake, and maybe that's all anyone can do when faced with the impossible moral equations of war. Not seek perfect justice or complete redemption. Just acknowledge the truth, carry the burden, and try to make your remaining days honor the memory of those lost. Ahmad died in Fallujah in November 2004. He was 12 years old. He died because a stressed sniper made a split-second decision based on incomplete information. His death was a tragedy, but it wasn't a crime, and the man who killed him has spent 12 years punishing himself for it. That's not justice, but it's honest. And sometimes, honest is the best we can offer.